Time to get your fix. Come on down, get your horrible gaming review. 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 Wow.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming, and this is another horrible game review. Another one I'm very excited about. Before we get into it, let's go ahead and run down the usual disclaimers. Number one, the word horrible in the title of this video does not refer to the game itself necessarily, but the video quality. I do snap judgment reviews. I very rarely am able to get through the entirety of the content, and I'm basically just trying to give you an idea of whether you should play this game or spend your time on it or not. Number two, I don't give scored reviews. I don't believe in them. I think they're one of the most, that video games is one of the most subjective forms of art. Therefore, I will give you an overview of what the game or DLC is. I will then give you the pros and the cons of this DLC, in my opinion, as all reviews are. And then I'll tell you whether I personally will be sticking with it outside of the purposes of this review itself. That being said, you guys love your Borderlands content, and I like to give you guys what you love. So, Borderlands dropped some more stuff, and that would be the third DLC for Borderlands 3, and that would be Bounty of Blood, Fistful of Redemption. How does it size up to the others? Well, before we get into that, let's get into what this DLC is. This DLC, in a lot of ways, is a return to kind of form for Borderlands. You're immediately greeted with this kind of like bounty poster at Sanctuary. Once you click it, you're told to just go to a planet, and then once you head down to the planet, you are hit with another story. The story is told from the point of this narrator, who's kind of a little bit more of a high-pitched Sam Elliott type. And I still haven't met him in game. If you do meet him in game, but he's a lot of fun because he actually follows you around through the entire game, and they actually did voiceover work for this guy for literally every side quest or thing you find in the game, which really kind of made a beautiful continuity to it that I really enjoyed. There's even one part where they kind of break the fourth wall and your character talks to him as if he's right there, which made me chuckle and giggle. The story itself is about a new planet called Gehenna and a specific settlement called Vestige. Vestige is besieged by these terrible outlaws called the Devil Riders, and of course they ride things, monsters, kind of dinosaur-looking monsters called devils. The sheriff of this town ends up drawing up this crazy, ridiculous bounty, which is what your vault hunters are there to collect on. I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but right off the bat, you meet a brand new character, and there is a real twist in the first hour of this game. You can actually see it if you watch our first run of it. There is some spoilers there, but I don't want to spoil it here since you're just coming here for a review. But either way, you know, stuff happens, but the basic idea, the through line is the same as all Borderlands. You're chasing somebody to stop a thing to kill a bunch of people. And basically anybody who gets in your way gets shot and exploded in whatever ways that they deem fit. So I'm not going to go into the story so much anymore just because I don't want to spoil things for you guys. But we are going to go into the pros and cons. But before we do that, I also want to touch on something else that came with this release, and that would be a new patch and new hotfixes for the game. This patch and hotfix supposedly changes some of the things that we've come to know and hate from Borderlands 3. So now your action skill actually scales with mayhem levels as well as melee and butt slam. These are the most important changes that they've made. So the idea being that before, when you're playing, and any heavy Borderlands player will tell you, that when you're playing in the later end games, stuff, the high level end game stuff, really you're only using your action skill to proc kill skills or other abilities within your own build. In other words, the giant mech that Mose uses becomes completely useless later because it doesn't have the damage capacity to actually hurt anything at later levels, and your guns end up being way more useful. What the high level players ended up doing was building their characters around using the action skill to proc a bunch of skills to make the gun damages even higher. So you would have people who jump into Mose's Iron Bear and then jump right out so that they get some sort of bonus effect. Same with Flak, same with everybody else. Very few of the action skills were actually really useful in battle. So this is supposed to change that. So with that being said, let's just segue right into pros. Man, they changed it. Look, I'm sure there's some bugs, and I'm sure it's not perfect. Nothing ever is with a Gearbox update, and we're definitely going to notice things as we go along. But from the 5 hours that I've played of this game so far, I don't even know if it's been 5 hours. Probably been more like 3 or 4. I haven't actually finished the DLC. But from that, immediately I was greeted with, on Mayhem 10, I went in on Mayhem 10. I have a Mose build that's built around the Iron Bear. The thing could barely hang at Mayhem 2 before. I went in on Mayhem 10 and I do fine. In fact, I do better in the mech than I do outside of the mech with Mayhem 10 guns. So the action skills have definitely scaled, which I think is going to really change the diversity of some builds out there. It's going to make some people kind of rethink their builds. Maybe you have more validity in the action skill builds now when you're building a character to make an action skill. And that's the best thing for me. As a Borderlands 3 player, I had dropped off quite a bit. And one of the things that made me drop off is the fact that you're given these amazing cool powers that make your character you, and you couldn't use them. You can now. Of course, this patch doesn't directly relate to the DLC. So it's kind of a half point in a way, because like the patch is just coming at the same time as the DLC. It's not reflective of the DLC itself, but it's hard not to compare the two. So I feel like it's worth mentioning here. My next pro is probably going to surprise a lot of people out there because it's not what you're thinking. It's not the story or the action or any of that or the new guns or anything or the new setting. My next highest on the list, number one with a bullet, the musical score to this one is absolutely phenomenal. Don't get me wrong, the Borderlands 3 games have not been slouches in the musical department, in my opinion. None of the DLCs have been terrible, neither has the Borderlands itself. However, this score for me really felt different, and just they have this like perpetual violin every time you're in a fight that really just builds tension and feels like you're in that Western. Guns, Love, and Tentacles, and Moxie's Heist, Handsome Heist, or whatever it was called. Both of those are great DLCs. I've loved them story-wise, but their musics didn't do anything specifically original compared to this one, which it really, really hammered home. It gave you that different aesthetic, and it really made you feel like you're in a different part of the game. It breathed freshness into it for me, and I really enjoyed that. My next pro, again, the writing on this DLC, I was a little worried about because of everything that's going on in the Gearbox behind the scenes. I thought maybe this product would suffer a little because of it. But the writing, again, on this DLC is phenomenal, and again, blows away the original game. I will say I tended, not everybody's going to agree with me out there, and that's fair. This is personal opinion, but I tended to enjoy the writing itself of the last DLC and the DLC before it. So far, anyway, better than this one. This one is kind of just like they took a spaghetti western and they did exactly that. I didn't feel like there was a whole lot of originality to it. And again, I have not finished this DLC yet, so that the end could totally rock my socks. But for the time being, I enjoyed the writing of the first two better. That being said, it still is far and away better than the original game, and still some great writing. They do a really good job of just kind of building another world for you to play on. The only thing I'll say, though, is this world feels very derivative of basically Jacob's and Pandora. To do a Western in a game that has so many Western settings already was a little bit weird for me. And I think that kind of gave me a samey feeling that I feel like needs to be mentioned here. They did put some kind of like some like oriental designs to it, but uh, this is supposed to be a pro. I'm kind of totally off the rails. Sorry, guys. But again, the writing is still really good. It's still definitely a pro and not a con. Not a con at all. We will just go ahead and transition into the cons now. Again, the con right off the bat, the sameness feel. I kind of stumbled into it with the pros, and I'm sorry. I'm a little tired while doing this, so please give me the benefit of the doubt. But the sameness of the setting a little bit. I'm not really feeling as wowed by it, with the exception of course, the music, which I already talked about. And I'm very much hoping I get to ride one of those devils. I haven't gotten to yet, and that's a little irritating, but I'm hoping I get to. My next pro is the vehicle. The new vehicle in this, I know that a lot of other places have kind of touted it as really cool. It's not. It's not cool, and there's nothing special about it. It's just another annoying vehicle that you don't want to be in for any period of time. Borderlands does vehicles terribly. They always have. It's always one of their biggest weaknesses through any of the games, in my opinion. And this vehicle just doesn't do anything for me. Also, supposedly with the all the other scaling, they were supposed to have scaled the vehicle stuff, and I didn't notice any of that. Mayhem 10, my vehicle gets immediately blown up, just like always. So maybe I misunderstood, and that just hasn't gotten here yet, or whatever. But I wasn't impressed with the new vehicle at all. Fitting kind of in with the one con about sameness. My final con is the devils on this one. Look, they're cool in the fact that people ride them, and I want to ride them, but really, they're Saurians. They're Saurians from the original game. They look very similar to the Saurians. So you can tell that they kind of reused the asset and just kind of changed the face a little bit. So again, there's that kind of samey feeling that is a little irritating. I will say, again, kind of merging the pros and cons. Sorry, it's kind of hard to talk about this one without doing that. But I will say that while there is a sameness to it, I feel like they hammered home the spaghetti Western aesthetic a little bit better in this than they did in all the other previous kind of Western settings that they did. But still, there's a lot of Western settings that they've already done. So just kind of had a little bit of a sameness feel to me. So that brings me to whether or not I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to beat this all the way through. And I'm actually going to say, in a lot of ways, whether it's directly because of the DLC or the patch or whatever you want to attribute to, this update has brought me back to Borderlands 3 a little bit. I'm kind of excited to play with it. I'm excited to play with the other characters now and maybe make action skill builds with them. I'm even thinking about reworking my Zane a little bit, that his digiclone finally does damage, maybe actually do something with that. So I'm actually kind of excited to play Borderlands 3 again. It makes it playable again. And it does something really good, which kind of gives you that superpower again, that power fantasy, which is what Borderlands, the original Borderlands, did so well that this one's kind of been missing in the end game. I mean, don't get me wrong, your action skill is great for any casual player playing through all of this on just the normal game. Your action skill is going to work fine for you, and it's gonna do great. But before this, if you put on Mayhem, your action skill became nothing, and it was all about the gun build, and what you did after or before the action skill. Now the action skill trucks, and I'm really happy to see that, and that makes me really excited. It definitely brings me back, and that's a big win for Borderlands 3 in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to finishing this game. I'm looking forward to getting through it to the end. I'm looking forward to the great music and some more voice acting. So all in all, Borderlands 3, they haven't done everything right, but their DLCs, they have knocked out of the park. And this is another one, in my opinion. Maybe not quite as strong as the last two in some other areas for me. I think there are people even related to this channel who would say they enjoy this one better than the others. But, this is my review, so it's got to be my opinion. But again, I'm just pointing that out because I think it's kind of a very subjective area. Nonetheless, I still think they knocked this one out of the park again, and the DLCs have been great. I'm looking forward to the fourth DLC, and I'm really liking what I'm seeing from Borderlands 3, hoping they're finally on that right track. So, okay, so kind of a long-winded and confusing review. I'm sorry it wasn't as put together as well, but this one was kind of hard for me to describe without like describe the pros and cons by themselves without kind of merging them into one. In any case, if you did like this or you didn't like this, you can talk to us at a multitude of different places. Facebook at Old Man Gaming DH, on Twitter at Old Man Gaming 9. You can join our Discord. It's in the link in the description below. We'd love to hear from you, whether you like us or hate us or love us or want us to be done. Still love communication. So check us out there. And as long as you guys keep watching and listening to this, we'll keep making them because that's what we love to do. See you guys next week.